Welcome into the Train with the Best podcast. I am Craig Hoffman, a performance coach and media professional.
And I'm Chris Gorres, international presenter and master trainer.
International educator, just international man of mystery. That's what you are. This is the podcast that brings high performance to the people. We are back after a bit of a summer hiatus. This happens every summer. We just kind of get into summer mode, and then it's like, hey, we should do a podcast. We have some cool interviews coming up the next couple of weeks, though. To take another hiatus while I'm in Paris for the Olympic Games, but certainly talk about that when I get back. So, but excited to get back on the mics, Chris, and talk about what you are doing and how it's mixing with some of what I'm doing, which is right now you are actually in the middle of camp. Not training camp like I will be in the middle of here in a couple of weeks for covering the Commanders for my day job. But you and Lorenzo Alexander are putting on a football camp down there in Richmond. And it looks like a lot of fun. And I'm very sad that I can't come, but I can't take time off of work because I'm going to Paris in a couple of weeks.
That's right. So Lorenzo, who of course is one of the original founders of the Train with the Best podcast, where we used to film and record this podcast in his basement. He's out here, brought his family over here from Arizona to spend the week with us and hang out, but also to put on a football camp where we can, what we call fill the gaps. You know, Zoe and I have been around football for a long, long time. We've been around a lot of different levels, a lot of different athletes. And as our sons are getting into youth football and high school football, we go back there and look, the last time, you know, up until 2 years ago, the last time I was in a room talking about football, that room was with Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay and Matt LaFleur and Kevin O'Connell. So, like, you know, you go from that to youth football where the calls are, you know, hey, we're going to run red. We're going to run blue. You know, I'm used to like gun, double right, zip, you know, 2-jet, 30X snack. Like I'm used to that. And now we're running blue.
A whole other play.
And then the can, a whole other play. So, you know, we talk about, but there are some gaps there that we can fill in terms of teaching kids the fundamentals, the principles of football, why play structures are that way, why certain defenses are built, what they're designed for, what they're designed not to do, right? And how do you attack that from an offense standpoint? Like, there's all kinds of things that we're teaching these young kids that, you know, unfortunately on the youth football side, so many of the good quote unquote programs are just recruiting kids that are a little bit further along in their development stage than other kids, and they're not teaching them actual football concepts. I'm always shocked at how many kids don't know what the A, B, and C gap mean, or who has run fits and this and that. And those are just basic football terms that we feel like everybody should know. And wanted to, you know, put our time and effort into the kids and show them some of the things that we know, or to share some of that experience and help build them up.
So what are some of the, I know the answer to this question. I'm just going to set you up here because this is the whole premise of the show today. But what are some of the things that when we talk about high performance and strength and conditioning and kind of the role that we play in ultimate athletic performance, where you see those gaps that you think it's important that, because like, obviously for you guys right here in this camp, you and Lorenzo are taking your football knowledge. You were a D1 player. Lorenzo played in the NFL. Like, you're actually getting on the whiteboard and doing some football. But for the average strength and conditioning coach, high performance coach, whatever you want to say, they're not doing that. You have to know enough maybe to run a drill and to do something in the off season, but you're not actually going to teach the theory. But there are things that you can teach beyond pure trait development that can help an athlete. And I think some of those things then apply to not football, and not just not football as in basketball or soccer, sports that are similar in decision-making, but running races and all those kinds of things. So what are some of those gaps that you've tried to fill and emphasize this week with Zoe?
Yeah. You know what, I think with all sports, execution there's always going to be two things that you need to succeed, and that's effort and execution, right? And now the effort part is something that should be taken care of by the athlete. The athlete's got to come in and give the effort. That's not something I can ever help you with, right? I can tell you when it's not enough. I can certainly do that.
Right.
Now, if you're giving the effort, then what's left is execution. And then execution just really breaks down into what you said is the physical traits. Do you have the physical ability to execute? And then do you have the mental capacity to execute? And so much of what we talk about even in this show is we talk about recovery concepts. That has nothing to do with bench press or deadlift or sprinting or plyometrics. That's quite literally like, hey, how do we recover so that we're getting the best out of the workouts that we're just getting, right? And what we're trying to do is help these kids understand that there's a mental preparation for the football side, for football, and for really any sport. You have to have a mental preparation, some sort of routine that is going to help you feel confident on the field. Because when you feel prepared, when you recognize and you can see what is happening in the game, and you know how to execute, that's going to make you that much faster on the field, right? And that goes for all sports, certainly for football, but you could relate that to really anything.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I'll use myself as an example, and kind of a larger training principle here of, do you have the ability based off recovery to execute the thing that you need, right? So this week I wanted a couple of hard sessions, a couple of easy sessions. I'm in the middle of a fairly heavy, intense training block right now. And I posted about this on my Instagram page. If we get this podcast published fast enough, it'll still be on my story with some of the Whoop data and everything. But I accidentally went way too hard yesterday. I took our endurance class at Elevate, and my goal was to take it at like 70% and just log some mileage, nothing crazy, nothing killer. And my watch was off. My Garmin was like sitting, I think, on the bone on my wrist, and so it wasn't fully capturing my heart rate. So I kept looking down, being like, I don't feel like my heart rate's in the 140s, but that's what it says. And sure enough, I shifted it around and looked down about 30 seconds later, and that motherfucker said 179. And I was like, that is not 140. And it's not even the 150s or low 160s where I wanted to be. And so not only did I ultimately in that workout go way harder than I wanted to, I fully blew up in that workout. Like, could not complete it as prescribed on the boards. I had to cut the sprints at the end from like a minute long high speed run to like true, let me just touch some speed for 10 seconds and then walk the rest of the interval. I could not sustain at the level that I was supposed to for that workout. And today, for what was supposed to be a hard session, I tried and I had to bail on the workout. And so that ability to feel all of that stuff in real time without data, and also manage your sessions in a week, like this is the kind of stuff we're talking about. And I think when you talk about someone like Lorenzo at the absolute highest level, like he doesn't have a choice of when he peaks. Like for me, was this less than optimal for what I'm trying to achieve right now? Sure. Am I getting a different adaptation because I wound up doing a hard cardio workout versus a hard strength workout? Yes. But I don't really care. I'm not running a race till the fall. It's fine. If Lorenzo does that and blows up in a workout during the week and goes too hard or does something wrong, and then his body is not ready for Sunday when he's paid to play football back when he was playing, like that's a huge problem. And so ultimately, like long story short, the ability to execute what it is that you're trying to do in any given moment, whether it's on a given play, whether it's over the course of a workout, whether it's over the course of a week, whether it's over the course of a season, there's a level of management that with experience as an athlete, and also experience as a coach, you will be able to manage much better.
Yeah, intelligence is the right word there, right? Like being able to decipher a football play. Yes, that's specific to football. But going into what you talked about, hey, this is what I was doing. You were able to take some of the feedback that you were getting from your whoop. You were able to look at what your plan design was for that day and say, hey, this is what I was doing, and this is what was causing that. Like that's intelligence, right? That's not just being like, today was hard, and then just like throwing.
When I didn't have it in the workout today, I knew why. I was like, because I messed up yesterday, and I was going to try to see, because like I also woke up with some data that suggested I might be able to be okay today, and then I just had to listen to my body and be like, nope, we are definitively not okay. But like then I think as a coach, if I'm coaching myself here, like how do I then reconfigure the rest of my week? What is the most important thing for me the rest of my week? And like for me specifically to not be opaque about it, like my long run on Saturday is my next big, thing that I care the most about. So if that means I take fully off, we're recording this on a Thursday, and if that means I take fully off tomorrow, fine, because I need that mileage on Saturday. That's the most important thing. And so when we talk about keeping the main thing, being smart, do no harm, like doesn't mean push through and do what I was going to do tomorrow, no matter what. It means making sure that I'm ready to go for the next big thing on my schedule. And like, I think you were about to say, like that can also happen within a workout, both in terms of like football execution, whatever, but like in a running race as well, which I know your colleague Candace just talked about in another
Yeah.
podcast.
Yeah, look, like planning is everything, right? Like you're planning your workouts, you have a plan that on Saturday this is what you need to do to stick to that plan, you need to make adjustments, right? Like setting a plan doesn't mean like you're setting that in stone and you're sticking to that plan no matter what. Setting a plan is having a structure that you want to follow and know what are the main things, what are the main points, what are the things that I absolutely have to have, and what are the things that are flexible in this plan where I can make some adjustments where I need to. You know, it on a specific race day, Candace was talking about just the intelligence and having a plan of how to attack a particular race. Because a marathon, 26 miles, it isn't always the same 26 miles in Richmond as it is in Miami, as it is in LA or Boston or New York, right? So like you got to have a plan for that race, know the course, right? Know the spots in the course where it's going to be a grind. Know the spots in the course where you can take it easy a little bit, right? Or you can cruise. We have a little bit of a decline on the hill here, and we can open up the stride a little bit, let this take us, right? So, having a plan is so much better than not having a plan and just being reactive to everything, right?
100%. And I can speak to this in races, both like the half marathon that I did. I knew in certain parts of the race I needed to get ahead. Like ultimately, you're going to have if you have a goal finish time, you divide that finish time by the length of the race, and if it's 13.1 miles, then that's your average mile time. But that doesn't mean you're running a constant 9:06 pace if you want to run a sub 2 hour marathon. You're going to have
Right.
some miles at 8:55, some miles at 9:15, depending on hills, depending on shade, depending on any number of factors that might come through. And so I knew there were areas of the course that I was going to needed to like make up time, that needed to be a little bit faster, and areas where it's like, okay, I'm under here, but that's fine. I've planned for this. And then the ability to adapt within a race, I think, is also something else that we talk about, like High Rocks, for instance. And unfortunately, the way High Rocks is right now is they continue to experiment with the turf and the sleds, and those are two of the stations earlier in the race: the sled push and the sled pull. And sometimes those sleds feel, even though they put the same amount of plates on every time, because the turfs are different and on the different surfaces and the humidity and like all those factors that ultimately affect the friction level, sometimes those sleds fly and it's like, oh, I don't even really need to brake halfway through the sled. Like I can just push, 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 and I'm done. And it's easy and it takes nothing out of my legs. And then it's like, okay, well, I can run really well. And I'm guessing the sled pull is going to be the same when I get back to those sleds in a second. Other times, it's terrible and that sled's not budging and you might need to brake more often.
Right.
And then you're going to need to slow down your runs. And if you have a certain goal time, like you're going to have to figure out where to make up that time or just tell yourself you're abandoning the goal. Like sometimes that it'd be like that. So I think that ability to adapt within a game or within a race is really interesting. But also, I think that's where like scoreboard sports are also a little different when you're not competing against yourself, competing against time, that kind of thing. But like you got another team, and if you got to score 28 points to win, you got to score 28 points to win, and you better figure out what it is that you need to do strategically and execution wise to ultimately get the ball across the or into the end zone and score those points or keep that from happening if you're playing defense.
Yeah. And we don't have to get into the woods of like, how do we play an overfront versus an underfront and the cover 4 versus the cover 3. We don't have to do that, but just the idea of having plans. And I know that it sounds simple, like, oh yeah, I plan my workouts, and like you have to plan it all the way down to a T. You have to plan for adjustments to make where you're going to push a little bit, where you can pull back a little bit. And you have to know when and where to make those adjustments, right? Like, so if you're not prepared with those adjustments, then you're just going to be caught and you're going to be wondering what you should do or if you're doing the right thing. So, being able to go through a plan and really try to poke holes through it so that you can come up with the adjustments that you need to and have answers for everything, right? Like in football, we do that. In basketball, we do that. In baseball, we do that. And in High Rocks, you do that, right? Like if oh man, like this took this much out of me. I wasn't expecting that. All right, now I've got to audible a little bit. I'm going to like take it a little bit easier on this run and not go my normal pace so that I can try to recover and then I can make up time here, right? Like,
Right.
so
Or,
having
your
those,
row, whatever, like you pick somewhere to
right,
let your body recover, and then you push somewhere else to try to make up the time. Like that's the only option you have. But knowing where to push and where
right,
to pull back from and what is costly. Like we talk about this, for instance, because I think this is a very easy example to follow. And I know it's easy, Chris, because I'm going to do math. It's me doing math, but it's 1,000-meter row, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so the difference in effort level between, let's say, a 203 and a 206 per 500 pace is significant, but it's only 6 seconds. If it's
yeah,
3 seconds per 500, 500 twice is 1,000. Is that extra effort that could blow you up worth 6 seconds?
yeah,
No. If you can use that slower pace to recover on the row and then run faster or take less breaks, if you take one 6-second break less during the lunges after, which is later in the race, well, now you've made up that time. So
yeah,
like it's a no-brainer. In some
yeah,
ways, it's like if you're a Formula One fan, like, do you take the extra pit stop and get the
yeah,
fresh tires, or do you just
yeah,
keep on trucking? And typically the answer is you
yeah.
get the fresher tires because you're going to make up that 20 seconds with faster lap times real quick.
Yeah, yeah. Formula One is a great way to talk about what we're talking about. Is just having a plan. Like we know what the turns are, we know what the mileage is, we know what the tires are capable of, we know what the car is capable of. Right. So you plan that. You have a plan. Now, if you have to make adjustments on the fly, you make adjustments on the fly. But like this is just with everything in life, with everything in sports. I'm just using football as an example with this particular camp, but really, that intelligence factor is such a key to success. Being able to be organized, have a plan, execute the plan, have adjustments so that you can still execute the plan even when things go wrong. That's the key to everything.
Yeah, and I think the intelligence also plays. We've talked about this before. I think there was some point where you had some brilliant line about like intelligence versus knowledge or something like that, and
Yeah.
the ability to properly ask the right questions versus
Just know all the right answers, right?
yeah, knowing
Knowledge
all the
versus
right answers.
intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah, that. Do you want to give the concise version of what I just butchered, or do we want to just do people get it and we just run with
knowledge
it?
is having all the right answers. Intelligence is having all the right questions.
There you go. And the thing with intelligence is exactly that. Like, do you actually know with clarity what you're trying to accomplish? Because that means you'll make the right adjustments to still reach the end goal. Maybe not quite as optimally as if everything had fallen into place, but it's going to prevent you from getting sidetracked and veering off in the wrong direction because you actually are still oriented in the right direction in the first place.
Right. Right.
And
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 then you're not wasting effort.
right.
Right.
And
That's
it's the methods principles thing, just
yeah.
flipped in a different form of like,
Yeah.
do you ultimately do you understand what you're trying to accomplish and thus use different methods to get there?
Right. Right. Exactly.
Anything
And
else
and
from camp?
this is the high performance podcast, right? Like, so when we talk about performance, we're not just talking about workouts, we're not just talking about recovery, we're talking about that mental preparation of, yeah, we might talk about mindset and attitude towards things, but you have to have an intelligent plan of attack. Like whatever it is that you want to run, if you want to run a faster time, if you want to swim a faster time, if you want to win a football game, you got to have a fully thought out plan going into that.
For sure. All right. Anything else we want to add here?
No, I think we're good. I'm excited for the Olympics, man. I've been watching sprint.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun just to kind of see, the behind the scenes. I've known Noah's story for a little bit. Noah is a Virginia kid, so
Yeah.
people around here know him. And then to see Sha'Carri Richardson try to embrace the villain role, but not really, because that's not really who she is. She just kind of got thrown into that a little bit of like the Angel Reese thing, where she gets thrown into this villain role, and that's
Angel's all about the villain role, though. I'm like, you need to listen to your haters
but
less.
she's not full Draymond. You know what I mean? Like, she'll have her moments after the LSU loss in the tournament where, she'll break down. She'll like, Draymond's not going to do that. Like, to me, like that Draymond, Dylan Brooks, that's like a full villain, right? Whereas like Sha'Carri will do it, Angel will do it, but that's not really who they are. They just like to play ball. They just like to run.
I'm the biggest
Draymond
Dylan
fully
Brooks.
embraces.
Yeah, Draymond does. I'm the biggest Dylan Brooks hater on the planet. He tries to, and then he gets upset that people are mad that don't like him. And I'm like,
exactly.
What do you? Bro, just you're Canadian. You're supposed to be nice. It's fine.
Yeah.
You don't need to be this guy. You don't need to be all mean mug and then be like the media. It's like you
did this.
I'm not going down another Dylan Brooks rabbit hole. I don't need that in my life. It's the middle of summer. It's fine.
Yeah, see? There you go. Stick to the plan. We are sticking to the plan right now.
Sticking to the plan. All right. If you want more from Chris, at Trainer Gorres, they're doing awesome stuff all summer long at Onyx. So make sure that you are following along to get an inside peek. And of course, if you happen to be in the Richmond, Virginia area, you can go train at Onyx. Every day, I'm like, should we move to Richmond so I can go train with Chris? Instead, I just do the best that I can here in Washington, D.C. If you want to train with me, we train out of Elevate Interval Fitness, but shoot us a note, hello@trainwiththebest21.com. Happy to hook you up if you are in the area and ever want to train with us in person. In the meantime, though, thanks for listening to the podcast. We'll be back relatively soon. And then once we get into the fall, we'll be back in a rather regular rhythm of podcasting. I have a very cool interview coming in the next couple weeks remember that big machine that Patrick Mahomes used in quarterback where he was doing all the big fancy power rotations? I was like, damn, that thing's cool. Prometheus. Yeah. We're going to talk to the guy who built that thing. So that's going to be coming up in the next few weeks on the pod. So make sure you're subscribed, and we'll see you next time on the Train with the Best podcast.